Episode number 49. This chapter was left unfinished. Chapter 9 in the Cathedral. A very important Italian business contact of the bank had come to visit the city for the first time, and Kay was given the task of showing him some of its cultural sites. At any other time he would have seen this job as an honor, but now, when he was finding it hard even to maintain his current position in the bank, he accepted it only with reluctance. Every hour that he could not be in the office was a cause of concern for him. He was no longer able to make use of his time in the office anything like as well as he had previously. He spent many hours merely pretending to do important work, but that only increased his anxiety about not being in the office. Then he sometimes thought he saw the deputy director, who was always watching, come into K.'s office, sit at his desk, look through his papers, receive clients, who had almost become old friends of Kay, and lure them away from him. Perhaps he even discovered mistakes that seemed to threaten Kay from 1,000 directions when he was at work now, and which he could no longer avoid. So now, if he was ever asked to leave the office on business, or even needed to make a short business trip, however much an honor it seemed, and tasks of this sort happened to have increased substantially recently, there was always the suspicion that they wanted to get him out of his office for a while, and check his work, or at least the idea that they thought he was dispensable. It would not have been difficult for him to turn down most of these jobs, but he did not dare to do so because, if his fears had the slightest foundation, turning the jobs down would have been an acknowledgement of them. For this reason, he never demurred from accepting them, and even when he was asked to go on a tiring business trip lasting 2 days, he said nothing about having to go out in the rain autumn weather when he had a severe chill, just in order to avoid the risk of not being asked to go. When, with a raging headache, he arrived back from this trip, he learned that he had been chosen to accompany the Italian business contact the following day. The temptation for once to turn the job down was very great, especially as it had no direct connection with business, but there was no denying that social obligations towards this business contact were in themselves important enough, only not for Kay, who knew quite well that he needed some successes at work if he was to maintain his position there, and that, if he failed in that, it would not help him even if this Italian somehow found him quite charming. He did not want to be removed from his workplace for even 1 day, as the fear of not being allowed back in was too great. He knew full well that the fear was exaggerated, but it still made him anxious. However, in this case it was almost impossible to think of an acceptable excuse. His knowledge of Italian was not great but still good enough. The deciding factor was that Kay had earlier known a little about art history, and this had become widely known around the bank in extremely exaggerated form, and that Kay had been a member of the Society for the Preservation of City Monuments, albeit only for business reasons. It was said that this Italian was an art lover, so the choice of Kay to accompany him was a matter of course.